Canada accuses India of killing Canadians on Canadian soil. How does that affect the Canadian real estate market? Well, we talk about this with my good friend and mortgage broker, Dion Begg. So let's jump into the studio. Here we are, my friends, another week and another crazy, crazy world in the real estate market. But we are always blessed to have our good mortgage broker. That's what I'm trying to say. And good friend, Dion Begg. How you doing, my man?
I'm great, Gary. My daughter just had her ninth birthday, so we had a great weekend. Lots of noise in my house, but she was super happy.
Yeah. I've got a house full of girls and a boy, but it gets louder and louder. It's all good though. It's all good. It's kind of like the market. It gets louder and louder sometimes, right? It sometimes yells at us, you know?
Yeah, well, it may be yelling the wrong thing at certain times, though, right?
Or things we don't want to hear. But that's why we're here.
True.
We're to talk about things that we necessarily don't always want to hear. And some interesting international news, in fact, has come up over the last week or so here. We're into the last week of September, and some significant, can we dare say the name or the word accusations, but it really has been accusations. The Canadian government really saying what they feel about what happened with some individuals on Canadian soil here by the country of India, right? And that's really kind of affected some of the mindset of what's happening with some of our real estate too.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, this has impacted the relationship that we have with the Indian government. And as it relates to some of the stuff that you and I have spoken about over the last couple of weeks and months, there's talk about, this potentially having the Indian government get involved in the decision about where to send international students and potentially redirecting them away from Canada as a destination for their higher education. I believe in the last time I checked that India represented the largest cohort of students that do come internationally to Canada. And so if this does have an impact, then yeah, it could very well have that downward impact on international students' inflows into Canada. And depending on what side of the fence you sit on, some people are saying, well, maybe this may be a thing that we actually do need. Prior to this event happening, it was obviously on the table for discussion already, but this may in fact be something that pushes that hand in that direction.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting news, and we're still kind of unfolding all the information as it comes out, and how different the two different governments are reacting to it, and B, not only students but also international employers and things like that. So it really is an interesting time, and we're obviously, Dean and I will kind of keep an eye on it and provide some insight where we can. But that's not, to call it what it is, that's not an area of our expertise, but we do know the real estate aspect of it, and there is always a ripple effect. And my friends, the news creates ripples, always does. And in one of those ripples, it will always catch real estate, because real estate is really one of Canada's largest GDP, and that's why it's important to kind of stay in tune with what's going on, right? So, okay,
You bet,
so
yeah.
there's some interesting information that you're able to obtain over the last couple of days through your different lending partners, and obviously you reach out to them when needed to help educate your clients, and you've got some interesting information here from CIBC. So share with us what's going on there.
Yeah, so I mean, the headline is that CIBC reported about 100,000 renewals since these interest rate increases started. And of course, when that happens, you're looking for, are there any cracks or any issues that are coming up in relation to those renewals? And what they reported was that they aren't seeing anything extraordinary in the negative direction in terms of, renewals or people making their repayments, no extraordinary defaults or anything like that. So that's good to see on the top line. But when you dig a little deeper, what you find is that now, of all the mortgages that CIBC carries, a quarter of them, 25% of these mortgages, are now having amortizations of 35 years or longer, right? Now, Gary, let me ask you, have you ever been lucky enough to sign up for a 35-year amortization?
I'm not sure if I have. Maybe.
If you
I know we've
have,
done
it'll
some
tell everybody
30s.
how old you are.
And I think, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I know when we were buying a lot of our properties, there was opportunity to take 40-year AMs, right? But we
Right.
chose not to. I think we did. We have done some 30s for sure.
Okay. 30s are common, but the 40s did exist, 35s did exist around 15 years ago,
Hmm.
right? But I will tell you right now, in terms of origination, you, me, or anybody going to a major bank and trying to get an amortization, the longest amortization possible, that is 30 years today. And so, what I see here, and what a lot of people in our industry are commenting on, is this inequality between what current customers are getting in terms of getting these breaks and getting amortizations of 35, in some cases 45 plus years, um, and new home buyers trying to break into the market, but they're only being offered maximum 30-year amortizations, assuming they've got 20% down. They have less than 20% down, of course, they'll have a 25-year amortization. So it's very much a double standard. And what is inadvertently happening because of this is a lot of these people who own homes, who under regular circumstances and not being given these breaks by the banks may have to sell. They're holding onto their homes, so they're keeping that inventory off the market, and so these first time home buyers aren't seeing this increase in inventory. Increase in inventory, of course, would mean potentially a decline in values, which would then again make it easier for these first-time home buyers. So while the bank may be trying to help their existing customers, they're preventing first-time home buyers from entering the market to some extent.
Yeah, yeah, and we're gonna get into some of the deeper conversations about what's going on in locally here in the markets, but you know while we're not quite seeing that huge flurry of new inventory. We are seeing new inventory, my friends. Don't get me wrong. But what we are also seeing is inventory stay on the market for a longer period of time. That's why it might feel like when you look at your MLS, there's a lot of listings. But for that inventory surge that we were all expecting hasn't quite happened yet. And I don't know about you, Dion. I don't think that really happens until probably that I'm going to tell you that second week in January. We still have a few months before any of that happens, in my beliefs.
Yeah, and in the background, we were talking off screen about OFSI and the fact that they have said to the banks that they don't want these banks to continue to give existing customers these extended amortizations, that they do want them to be brought back into their original agreement. So if you signed up for a 30-year amortization, OFSI is saying to the banks, we want that customer who's now on a 45-year back on a 30, which means interest monthly payments jump, which means those people are going to potentially be under pressure to maybe sell. So all of these things, and the funny thing around that, Gary, is I don't have a timeline. I haven't seen a published timeline where OFSI has said, okay, this is where I want you to get this done by. It's just kind of like a guideline. But I would expect that they would need to start enforcing that unless they if they're serious about it, they're going to have to start enforcing it very soon.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you mentioned offline too. We're starting to hear just the early stages of some rumblings of perhaps some of those major lenders offering different helplines and so forth to kind of talk you through it, coach you through it, provide you perhaps with some very unique options should you require it, right?
Yep. Just this week, I was speaking with a friend who works inside one of these major banks, and he was explaining that, and he's been in the same position for more than 20 years. He's saying that he's never seen these offerings where basically you can call their helpline, mortgage helpline, and explain your situation. And he's seen the I guess the internal assessment team give people a 45-year AM just on the spot over the phone. Okay, we'll just stretch out your payments or put them on interest only for a period of time. And historically, those types of major material changes to your mortgage would require a requalification, meaning reassessment of income and all those other things. But they're basically just doing these blanket approvals without having to reassess. And again, it's this double standard we're talking, because if you're going in to borrow as a new borrower, unfortunately, you're not going to be given that 35 or 45-year option, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my mind goes to the sales side of it, thinking, as someone that obviously has spent most of my life in sales, it's all about market share, and it cost marketing dollars and resources to acquire new clients. And the cheapest marketing resource that you can put out there or that energy is to keep your existing clients. And this market share, you don't want to lose possible market share. So it's kind of the same mentality, the way I'm kind of looking at it, right? The banks don't
Well,
want to lose their current market share.
there is that, but also they're also going to be making more per payment because when you stretch something out from a 25 to a 45-year amortization, then of course the proportion of your monthly payment that goes to interest jumps dramatically as well. So they're being kind to their customers, but they're also being very kind to their shareholders.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Okay, and we can get deep on all that kind of stuff, but let me tell you, folks. Even though we are seeing, and you're seeing some of the headlines, power sales or distress sales increasing. Yes, when you go from 50 to 100 listings on the Toronto Real Estate Board or more, that is a significant increase. But in the grand scheme of things, really, power sales recently and definitely over the last 15 years has really only represented about 1% of the market, and we're going to see that increase slightly, but not to the threshold of 5 or 10%. That's not going to happen. That would be a significant change to the market, even though we are seeing a significant change to the market. It won't be that big, but Dino and I were just looking at some numbers. I always like using the town of Markham. If you're in Canada, town of Markham is just outside of Toronto, but still has a population of about 300,000 and has all types of properties from condo towers to your detached homes. And we were just kind of looking at some of the numbers there, and we gauged what May looked like versus August. And the months of inventory, we were actually a little somewhat surprised. It is relatively about the same, about 1.6 months worth of inventory of all property types. If I look at Richmond Hill, that is over 2 months. Excuse me. We are seeing that number. I bet you by the end of September, it'll get closer to the 2 month mark for Markham. But the number that didn't surprise us, it was in check. But it always just kind of blows me away when we see it in black and white, right? The price difference or the valuation has come down approximately 10% from May to August. And we're not talking...
Yeah, and so yeah.
No, I was going to say, we're not talking from 500,000 to say 450,000. We're talking, it was that 1.39 down to 1.24 type thing. So that's a big number, $150,000 difference there, right?
Yeah, and there were two major factors regarding those dates. So May was the last month where we had this consecutive rate pause of 4 months in a row, I believe, where we had that. And therefore, we had a significant run-up in the first half of this year in terms of valuation. But then June, July, we started seeing these rate increases and a corresponding drop in pricing. So it's kind of like we've gone up the roller coaster and halfway back down the roller coaster, in the month of August. And where are we going to end up at the end of this year? I mean, I'm giving up on predictions, Gary. It's like every day there's some new data point that comes out that makes me think, oh, rates are going to go up again, prices are going to go down again. And then the very next day, something else comes out that tells me otherwise, right?
Yeah. Well, in my market report videos, I don't have it fresh right here in front of me on screen. I always look at the app that realtors have access to, and is how we book our showings and register offers, and it tracks how many showings a property received, or in general, how many showings properties received before it's sold, and that number is increasing and increasing and increasing. And of course, the months or the days that it's on the market is increasing. So my message to people that have a home that's listed, we'll take Markham as an example. And I'm making these numbers up. You can call me out and verify these numbers, and we'll do that if you have a specific area. But I believe for the city of Markham, you needed approximately 34 showings before your home sold. Okay. So if
That's
you
interesting. So I think that also means that buyers are becoming more discerning, and they probably have more choice, and therefore are taking their time. Is that a fair comment?
That's a fair comment, and we can get into something else in addition to that in just a moment. Here's what I want people to understand. if you have a home that's for sale and it's been up for, in this case, in Markham for a month and a half, and you don't have that number of showings, you've got a pricing issue. That's exactly what it is. You are priced way too high for that market, and you're not getting the showing. So that's to me, that's become one of my number one stats, is how many showings are these properties getting. And we can talk about the buyer's mentality if you want to, get into that. And I have a friend out west that owns a brokerage, and he uses this term, and we can talk about this a little bit. But we've become accustomed to, one of our favorite apps is Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And he'll often use the term, we've become like Amazon buyers where it comes to buying properties. We're flipping through the app. Nope, don't like it, doesn't have what I need, doesn't have what I need, doesn't have what I need, until they find what a home that's perhaps suitable. Where you and I don't want to say we've been accustomed to, or we've been trained to, or maybe we see the value different. We'll go buy a property in a location that we like, and we'll add
Yeah.
what we need. People aren't
Okay.
willing to add
I see.
or to renovate or to redecorate, what have you. They're not of
Okay.
that mindset right now. It's really interesting.
Right. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's always been the case that people prefer the finished product that has everything they want in it. But I think along the lines of what you're saying here, we have maybe our minds have been conditioned, especially over the last 5, 10 years, to getting exactly what we want immediately. That instant gratification that ticks all the boxes immediately, and maybe our addiction to our smartphone and the apps involved there may have been guiding us in that direction. But yeah, I can see how that does play on the psyche of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this regarding Amazon. You just brought up Amazon. I've been thinking about this for a long time, about the fact that the government needs major indicators from the economy that we have been hurt enough by these interest rate increases, and we will change behavior. And so this funny concept that came into my mind the other day when I was at the gym was, why don't we just, as a nation, decide for maybe a week or two not to buy anything on Amazon, and see what kind of an impact that has on retail spending, right? And I'm joking about it, but the truth is, back before we had Amazon Prime, and we wanted to purchase something, we had to get in our car and drive to 1 or 2 or 3 locations to buy those things, and then bring them home and put them, whatever the case may be. But that friction of having to actually physically go and out there into the retail world and buy stuff is now gone. And as you know, the more friction there is, the more, challenging it can be to go and do those things. So maybe back before we had this instant delivery to our house, we said to ourselves, do I really, really need that thing? Is it worth the time, energy, and money involved? And we made the choice that no, it wasn't worth it. And maybe we bought a little less back then. I'm going to guess that that's probably true. But now, because of the time and energy factor is removed, and it's just money now, then people are still spending, and that friction is not there. And maybe we just need to ask ourselves, if I had to go and get in my car and drive to buy this thing, would I be buying it, right? Either way. Maybe just take pause. I know I'm not going to start a revolution, and I know that nobody's going to stop spending on Amazon, but maybe just give yourself one more second to decide, do I really, really need this thing?
Yeah, it is interesting. I know we go through in spurts, right? Where everything we're purchasing is through Amazon, and then we kind of take a step back, or at least I do, perhaps. And of course, you can get onto everything from Amazon, to like the monthly subscription model, where you want toilet paper to show up your house every month. It will, right? They certainly have created an ease, and sometimes that ease is too easy, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And
Who knows? It's certainly interesting, and it will always impact the wallet some way. But how we tie that into real estate and mortgages and so forth, well, it's easy to spend when you physically are not exchanging something, right? When it's just a click of a
oh
button, how
yeah, yeah.
fast is that?
Oh yeah. That's why when you go to the casino, they give you chips, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't seem real.
it doesn't seem real. Yeah, Amazon
Yeah.
is real, my friends. And we not trust me. I am a huge fan of Amazon, so don't feel like I'm slagging on Amazon. All of my equipment and everything is all purchased. 95% of it is purchased through Amazon or at least Facebook Marketplace on it. I'm buying someone else's equipment that was previously used. So, anyways, and maybe that's it too. As we kind of banter on a little bit here, and I see it more and more. People looking to sell things that perhaps they're not using as opposed to holding on to it. And to me, that's great. That's great for, our local communities and so forth. And if you are looking, look to buy that secondhand. You don't always need that brand new, whatever it is, especially in my world where I'm the tech guy. I like looking at tech stuff, but in any case, it's all good. Okay.
And also from an economic data point, I don't think a garage sale transaction makes it onto the spreadsheets that the Bank of Canada sees. So yeah, if you're going to buy something, do it that way.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Okay. So yes, consumer spending is down, or maybe another word for it is it's becoming very selective. And
Yeah,
so
and I mean
forth, right?
that goes back to the contraction in Q2 in terms of GDP, and it's kind of funny that you and I spoke about this. The definition of recession is 2 quarters of contraction, and it's almost like this. We don't want interest rates to go up. That's one thing. On the flip side, we don't want to lose jobs and or for the economy to contract. But one of those things has to happen. It's almost like that, right? And so maybe if we get the Q3 reading and that we are in fact contracting again, which is a negative thing, which means people have lost jobs. It then, on the flip side, may mean that it could give the Bank of Canada pause to take another pause, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. That's probably a great spot to end this. So remind everybody how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, guys, kangamortgage.ca. And actually, Gary, I forgot to say this earlier. Our webinar is, in fact, tomorrow. I know you have the link. You can drop it in the show notes. So that's tomorrow evening. That's September 26th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Click on the link that Gary's going to drop in the show notes, and hope to see you there.
There you are, my friend. So for Mr. Dion Begg, I'm Gary McGowan. We'll see everybody on the next episode. Goodbye for now.